Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes.
Your school is now an engine of corporate training or workforce training for big companies with big tech on top.
A program that's supposed to boost students' grades while also feeding powerful algorithms.
They're going to take all that data and they're going to use it not just to develop better ed tech products, so better adaptive learning software and things like that, but also to develop basically down the line AGI, or artificial general intelligence.
The government has poured billions of dollars into the project, bringing together tech giants, startups, and schools.
When you look at this whole electronic system, it isn't really the governments that are rolling it out. You've got to understand what the governments are. The governments are figureheads, these mouthpieces for the corporate entity.
Companies we interviewed said the data can go to government-funded research projects. We spoke to parents who were unclear about where the data ended up, and they didn't seem to care too much.
I'm not seeing anybody asking questions about, what are we doing with this data? Where is it going?
And what is the fear if it reaches the general population and anyone's faces in this database?
It's that it could be misused.
The Reimagine Education project, it uses the same language as one of the CARES Act competitions. So the CARES Act wants to hand out money not just for the adaptive learning software, which automates the teaching with AI, but it also wants to give you money through a competition called Reimagining Workforce Preparation. So for what's geared towards the stimulus response is that conditioning is geared not necessarily towards academic learning, but towards what job they want to put you in, right? So your school is now an engine of corporate training or workforce training for big companies with big tech on top. Okay, so they're using the same language here to pump basically the same agendas, workforce training through the adaptive learning software. Then later they came up with something called LearnSphere. And LearnSphere was like, well, it's not in Bloom, it's like in Bloom, but we don't put it all in one database. It's distributed, and you can kind of, there's some firewall, some negotiation about who gets access to what data. But it's largely built on the same process, and the originator, Kettinger at Carnegie Mellon, will basically tell you it's essentially the same idea. And so what's the idea there? Well, it's basically to develop AI, okay? And so it's basically they're going to take all that data, all the student data, all the teaching data, all the learning data, all that cognitive behavioral data, and also what they call socio-emotional learning data. Okay, so the students' thinking algorithms and the students' feeling algorithms, they're going to take all that data and they're going to use it not just to develop better ed tech products, so better adaptive learning software and things like that, but also to develop basically down the line AGI, or artificial general intelligence. So to develop, basically an artificial consciousness, something that, because the adaptive learning software, which is based on Skinnerian stimulus response algorithms, right? It's super sophisticated, but it only does that. Okay, they can't decide to, one day get up and, stop doing that, or they can't extrapolate out into other algorithms, right? Natural language, etc. And so they want to take all of basically the student and teaching learning data through the developmental stages and use that to run through their AI algorithm. I should note that those federal regulations or deregulations, basically they say that they can't keep up with the AI deregulation or the AI evolution fast enough. So what there's a clause in there that basically says we don't have to give you prior approval to push the new algorithm forward. So they've already created the loopholes where basically they can take this data and crunch it for whatever, advances in technology they want to use. People with good intentions, they just, they want to plug in all the software because we're stuck here. So, we got to do something for the kids. And then we don't want anybody to get sick. So, but, I'm not seeing anybody asking questions about, what are we doing with this data? Where is it going? Is it inevitable? I don't believe that. I can't believe that. I believe in a higher power and all that type of stuff. And I believe that history has got us going somewhere. I don't think it's got us going nowhere. So, no, it's not crazy. And all the stuff is getting set up right now. And to tie back into education, don't think that if a student, is writing on their digital module and they have opinions that they think is mentally unhealthy, that might not go into any of those databases. And so, no, it's not crazy. But if we could start with, I really mean this is sincere. It seems so subtle, but the principle of non-contradiction, because the stuff they want us to do right now, they're contradicting themselves constantly. You don't have to have an authoritative expertise to say you said this, then you said that. They don't go together. It can't be, it's got to be one or the other. And at this point, you've demonstrated that you're not reliable. So now I'm going to make up my own decision.
Nobody can turn you into a slave unless you allow them. Nobody can make you afraid of anything unless you allow them. Nobody can tell you to do something wrong unless you allow them. God never created you to be a slave. Man did. God never created division or set up any borders between brothers. Man did. So why is man your God and not the Creator? It's a very, very disturbing future that is unfolding, and it's unfolding very, very quickly, folks. It really is. And people simply aren't paying attention to it. And even if they are, even if they're aware of it happening, the problem is that they're all participating in it. You know, even if they're complaining about the system, they're continuing to use all of this stuff. They're continuing to use all of this automated stuff that's being put in place, and they're continuing to buy all of these smart devices. And that's really the problem, folks, because the smart system itself is the slavery system. So, you know, how much awakening is there? Well, people are going to continue to be led down this path. And once it's rolled out, folks, and it's rolled out, and you can complain about the government all you want, if you're going to use the government's control system, which is what all of this digital mechanism and so-called Internet of Things, this digital everything is, then you're just ignoring the obvious that is right in front of your face and right under your nose. And folks, if they're telling you that they're on the verge of being able to do it soon, then it means they can already do it. Because we are always years and years and years and years behind what they've really got going on behind the scenes. They've got stuff going on behind the scenes that we never hear about and we'll never know about. And that's just the way it is. You know, we won't ever know about it until we find some way of establishing freedom, if we can never get the focus to do that. That's the problem. Everyone's just going along with it through their passive acceptance of it, and it's being rolled out right under their noses, and we've got a very, very short window to turn this around. But very few people are really looking at what's going on right under their noses, and very few people are seeing this digital system for what it is. Everybody is participating in it, everybody is continuing to use it, and soon it's just going to be all locked down, and there's not going to be very much we can do about it. You know, you can see where all of this is going, folks, and we have a very, very short window to turn it around. And one of the most important things that we can do at the moment from where we stand is to stop participating in this smart system. You know, I mean, I know a lot of people aren't going to do it. You go out in the street and look around, people are walking around like they've just got a glaze over their eyes. They're all looking and staring at their mobile phones. It's very hard to get interaction with people the way you used to. So not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to wake up. And there's even a possibility of the species splitting very soon into the technological haves and the technological have-nots, or want-nots. And that's really the problem, because it isn't the matter that you don't want technology, you just don't want the technology to go in the direction that it's going. And when this is going on, folks, well, how much wakefulness is there? How much wakefulness are we really seeing? How many people are actually doing something about it by not participating in the system and not supporting the growth of this technology and the takeover of this technology? I mean, that's the thing, folks. You know, if you're still supporting it, then why are you complaining about it? And what you've got to do, unfortunately, is stop using some of the conveniences that are being laid out before you, and most importantly, stop using anything that's becoming automated. And what else can you do, folks? Well, you know, many people are only really affected by their wallets, and they're only really affected by what they perceive is this legal system. You know, a lot of people think that the Matrix is real, so perhaps there's elements within the Matrix that we can use to wake people up, and it turns out that there is. I mean, it's not going to work. You're not going to get any sort of legal action taken against them or anything like that, but it might be something that will at least wake up these sleeping masses to the fact that there's something terribly wrong, something to make them question their reality a little bit, just something to make them think about this. I mean, there's so many issues that we face, folks. There really is. And I really believe that a lot of the stuff is put there just to keep us fighting amongst ourselves and to keep us distracted. Like, we've got so many issues to face. You know, we're being attacked on so many. What's happening in our own lives, it's this convenience reality that we've been immersed into. The way we've allowed ourselves to be led into this digital world, the way everybody's walking around looking at their mobile phones. Everyone's using apps to do everyday things now. Everyone's immersed into this world and they can't seem to escape from it. You know, a lot of people can't imagine what life would be like without their mobile phone. They can't imagine what it would be like without their computer, without all of this digital stuff that they've gotten so used to. And none of it's real. None of it exists in the real world. It's all a virtual world. And they're leading all human reality into this virtual world. You know, they're leading all of your wealth, which used to be gold and silver and then turned into paper fiat currency, is now turning into digital credits on a screen, which will disappear as soon as the electricity goes out. I mean, what's that? What sort of a world is that, folks? But that is the world that we have been led into, and we're continuing to be led into because we're participating in it every day. You know, it's our unwillingness to give this up. And it's something that isn't real. So why is it so hard to give up? That's the question. I mean, it's not human, it's not life, it's not tangible, it's not something you can pick up and touch, it's not something you can eat, not something you can breathe, it's not anything that actually exists, it just all exists in a virtual world. And we're transferring every aspect of our lives into this virtual world. I mean, I see the potential for a wonderful and enlightened future, but I can also see the reality that it's not going to happen unless people participate in creating that future. And that's one of the real problems, folks, is that people just don't want to look at the dark side. They don't want to really see what's happening. And when they do see it, they want to wait for an external savior to come along. There's a lot of people that have been warning us that the New World Order is coming for a very long time, but unfortunately, they're in this state of inaction because they believe that they're going to be saved without having to participate themselves, and I find that very unfortunate. And there's so much distraction happening, folks, and so much division and so much distrust, and while all this is happening, this whole electronic grid is still being rolled out beneath it. That's the thing, you see. Like, when you look at this whole electronic system, it isn't really the governments that are rolling it out. You've got to understand what the governments are. The governments are figureheads. These are mouthpieces for the corporate entity. But again, when looking at all of this, you can see behind it is this whole smart system still being rolled out. And this just seems to be going ahead like it has its own mind. It's not really being directed by a government or directed by anyone that you'd think would be in power. It's just this thing that is happening, you know, this scientific reality that's going on in the background is gradually sort of putting this net out that is encompassing everything. And the thing is, you know, when this smart system is rolled out, it's going to exert control which is unprecedented in the human condition. It really is. It's going to control us in so many ways, folks. And it's going to have access to the most personal details of all of our lives, and not only our lives, but also possibly our minds. And the technology that we're aware of, as I keep saying, folks, this is stuff that is in the mainstream, and this is not really what they've got. So, you know, they've got this technology hidden from us, and that's a stealth bomber that they had hidden from us, folks. That's pretty big. You know, it's going to constrain us in as much as it's going to lock us into a digital system where we simply don't have access to the things we need to function on a normal level unless we comply. And that's the problem. Those of us who won't comply will simply be cut off and will be left out in the cold, and that's the way it's going to be.